Welcome to the Sports Down Podcast. No politics, no drama, no arguing. Just two guys talking sports. I'm your host, JJ Peters. Today, I will be joined by my co host, Michael Menser. Michael is the host of the YouTube gaming channel Angry Turtles. Don't forget to check his channel out, subscribe, comment, and leave a like. Today in the podcast, we discuss the NFL Championship weekend and Super Bowl preview. We also talk about the UFC 257 results. Deshawn Watson demands a trade out of H-Town, and much more. All right, the first topic we're going to dive into is Deshawn Watson has demanded a trade. The three-time Pro Bowler for the Houston Texans and former first-round pick has officially demanded a trade. Michael, are you shocked at all that Deshawn Watson has or wants out of Houston?
I don't really blame him because they've kind of been wasting a lot of his good years, and not just him, but a lot of players, like JJ Watt, they kind of wasted his prime. So I don't really blame him, but I am a little bit shocked just because he is the future of the franchise. And I actually heard earlier today that the Houston GM didn't want to trade him either. So that made it kind of interesting too.
Well, I don't think they would want to, especially with the GM for the Texans. I can't remember his name now. It's Nick Caserio or something like that. It's his first seat, or he just got hired a few weeks ago, and
Hmm.
this is his first year. So of course he doesn't want to trade away their future. So I can see why he doesn't. And of course, but it didn't make any sense that they went out and hired David Culley, who I didn't know much about. I like the Ravens because of Lamar Jackson, but I had no idea who David Culley was, and they didn't even want to hire Eric Bieniemy. They didn't even interview him until basically Deshaun Watson forced him to. So it just doesn't make any sense. And I'm
Yeah.
not really surprised he's demanded a trade, but it'll definitely be interesting going forward. What team could you see
Hmm.
Deshaun Watson going to?
Uh, I can maybe see him going to the Steelers just because Big Ben, or the Saints too. I think because I think they both kind of need their future. Especially the Saints because Drew Brees. It could be his last year.
Yeah, I mean, I think they reported. I think they reported after, before the Saints and Buccaneers game. If the Saints were to lose, this would be Drew Brees' final game. But yeah, everybody's right now saying the Dolphins or the Bears. I think the Bears don't deserve Deshaun Watson because I feel like he's walking into the same thing he was in Houston. I mean, they have a
Yeah.
good team, but that management is just messed up. They had a chance to draft him with the number 2 overall pick as well as Patrick Mahomes. Instead, they took Mitch Trubisky. I could see him. Not a lot of people are talking about this, but I could see him going to the Raiders. I mean, the Raiders have a lot of things. I mean, John Gruden, is he sold on Derek Carr? I don't think he is. I'm not sold on Derek Carr. They have the weapons. They got a good running back. The defense has got to be fixed for sure. Yeah, but I mean, if they get Deshaun Watson, that Raiders team might be one of the best in the AFC. Probably not better than the Chiefs, Ravens, or Bills, but they could be one of those teams. And he would be great with the Raiders. And of course, the Raiders have a lot of cap room, and they can afford a trade because they have so many picks. But
I could
we'll
also see him going to either the Lions or the Vikings too, especially the Vikings. 'Cause I think the Vikings would be a really good fit because Kirk Cousins isn't great, and they still got a solid team, and they're still contenders. So, and then obviously the Lions, Matt Stafford, and them. So I don't know if he's going to be returning or not. So yeah, I can see the Lions also potentially making a push for them.
Well, I didn't even think about the Vikings. Kirk Cousins, I don't think he's that great, but he managed to get a massive contract before the season started. And before, I think it was in 2019, he led the Vikings to a playoffs and took down the Saints in New Orleans in the first round of the playoffs, which was pretty incredible. But yeah, I haven't mentioned the Vikings. The problem I have with that trade is they have no defense, and if they basically trade what 3 first round picks for Deshaun Watson and Kirk Cousins and maybe another some more picks, they're not going to have any money or draft capital to make that move or to make the defense better. But again, if you score a lot of points, you don't really need a defense. And of course, the Lions, they're going to move for Matt Stafford, but I feel like they want just a fresh new start, and they're likely going to draft a quarterback. They're likely, and I think they want to get a first round pick for Matt Stafford, which I think they will. But we'll see what happens going forward. If the Texans do move on from Deshaun Watson, do they draft a quarterback? What do you think,
I think they
Michael?
pretty much have to because who else do they got? Or either that, or they could maybe get a solid quarterback in free agency, but I think their best bet probably want to be drafting a quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, especially if they made a move with the Dolphins, and even if they traded, because if they trade with the Dolphins, they'd get the third overall pick, and they would probably receive Tua in that. But I don't even know if Tua Tagovailoa is the future, or they've if I don't think the Dolphins are sold on Tua. I don't think the Texans would be either. So if the Dolphins were to make that move and give what 3 first-round picks, maybe a third rounder and Tua, do you think the Texans, if they got Tua, do you think they would still draft a quarterback with the third overall pick?
Not necessarily the third overall pick. Maybe they might draft like a mid-round quarterback just to have competition, but I don't. I think they would likely just give him a shot, and if he can't prove it, then eventually they'll draft a quarterback. But I think they'll at least give Tua a shot.
Yeah, I think Tua's not a bad quarterback. I just think he's got a lot of work to do. And plus, this was his rookie season. So you got to give him some slack. He didn't really have a lot of weapons except for Devontae Parker. No running game to speak of. If I'm the Dolphins, I'm going to draft either if Devontae Smith is still available, draft him. Maybe draft Jalen Waddle if he's available. And then probably draft Najee Harris with the 18th pick if they don't make the move for Deshaun Watson. And lastly,
Also, the other thing.
oh, yeah,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. No, you can go.
The other thing, with Tua going to the Texans is he's basically going to be going into a same situation yet with his rookie year, if not worse, because his only good receivers are Will Fuller and Brandon Cooks, and he still doesn't have a great running game. Plus, the Texans also don't have a defense or an offensive line, so
Yeah, they pretty
it'd be
much don't have a
basically the same
team.
situation, but
Yeah, so you're pretty much saying they don't have a team, pretty much.
basically,
All right. What do you grade the Houston Texans hiring of David Culley?
I don't really know too much about him, so I'm probably going to say like a B minus. But I have heard some pretty good things about him, so
Yeah, I mean, he's been a coach for what, 27 years with 6 different franchises, and he's been with Andy Reid, he's been with John Harbaugh. I think he was in Tampa for a while, he was in Philly for a while. I think mostly with Andy Reid. But yeah, I don't know if I like the grade a lot because the Ravens passing game was not great last year and the receivers were not very good to say the least. So I'm going to probably grade that a C to C minus. But again, John Harbaugh spoke very highly of him. I believe Lamar Jackson really liked David Culley. So we'll see what happens, but I still think the Texans should have hired Eric Bieniemy, even though Deshaun Watson's mind was already made up. All right, now let's move on to a different topic. UFC 257 happened last night or happened last week, and the big topic was Dustin Poirier knocking out the notorious, aka Conor McGregor. Michael, what is next for Conor McGregor after getting KO'd by Dustin Poirier?
retire for good this time.
Really?
I think so. I mean, I think he's pretty old. He's well past his prime, and I just don't think he's really. I'm not saying he's bad because I still think he could compete with a lot of people, but I just don't think he's at the level he was a while ago. So
Well, yeah, I think he's lost his last 2 of his last 3 fights, and of course the inactivity was a huge reason I think why he lost. Maybe I think we might have been taking Dustin Poirier for granted. And he's a really good fighter. Do you think Dustin
mhm.
Poirier now has a chance for the title fight now after knocking out McGregor?
Yeah, I think he's probably like one. He definitely has a shot 'cause I think he's one of the best that there is,
Yeah, I mean he's
especially in
ranked.
his class.
Yeah, I mean he's ranked number 2, so I would assume that if Habib wants to come out of retirement, which is likely not going to happen, he would get the chance. Maybe Michael Chandler or Charles Oliveira will get a shot at Poirier for the lightweight title. Of course, you can't forget about Justin Gagey. I really think like I said, I think Dustin Poirier should get a chance for a title fight. I think Poirier before or after the fight was saying that he was shocked that this versus McGregor wasn't a chance for the title, but we'll see what
Yeah.
happens. Um, what did you think of Michael Chandler's performance after knocking out Dan Hooker? Now, remember, this was Michael Chandler's first fight in UFC after coming up from Bellator, which is another MMA league. What did you? What
So
did
I
you?
actually didn't see the fight, but I did see like what happened, and I was really impressed with him, especially like you said, it was his first fight, and so I was really impressed with him. And I think, it's pretty early to tell, but I think he could potentially be pretty good. And
Yeah, I mean, he was a what two-time All-American at Missouri. I mean, this guy, or a two-time All-American wrestler. I mean, I think he's great. I heard him on the Pat McAfee show on it was a Tuesday or Wednesday, and I thought he was a great guy. He was funny. I definitely think he should get a chance for the title fight. Last but not least, do you think Conor McGregor should go into boxing and maybe box Manny Pacquiao?
I mean, at this point, why not with him? He's already been like he's been in and out of retirement. He's been doing all these different things, so why not give it a shot?
Well, I think what he wants to do is he wants to get this is I think his last year of his contract in the UFC, and he wants or what I really think he wants to do is he wants another shot to get the lightweight title and then fight go into basically doing his own thing and promoting his own fights and stuff like that. So I think that's really what he wants to do. But it seems like right now he's got a 6 months medical suspension, so it doesn't seem like he's going to get that title at least till November or December. All right, let's switch gears once again, and we're going to go to college hoops. Now, Gonzaga looks almost unbeatable right now. Do you think anybody can take down the Bulldogs, Michael?
Oh, at this point, I don't think so. Maybe when it comes to like March Madness, maybe, but at this point, I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, what Gonzaga's so good right now, and it seems like almost every year we're like shocked that they're really good, even though they're normally really good every year. And
Hmm.
Mark Few's done an excellent job. Not Mark Few, excuse me. Yeah, Mark Few has done an excellent job at Gonzaga, and I could see them going to the national championship. I don't think they'll go undefeated because that's very hard to do in any type of sport. But I do think Gonzaga is almost unbeatable, and they're at least going to be in the Final Four. You're a big
Yeah.
You're a big Iowa fan, Michael. What do you? How far do you think Iowa can go in the NCAA tournament? If in it, even if we have or if we have an NCAA tournament, because it seems like we're going to. How far do you think Iowa can go?
Part of me wants to say like the Elite Eight, but part of me also wants to say Iowa, so they might not even make past the second round because it's Iowa. But I think they got a pretty good team, and so I think, especially with Luca Garza, I think they could make it far. I don't think they'll make it past the Final Four. They might make it to the Final Four, but I think that'd be like the furthest they go. I think more likely it's going to be like the Elite Eight, Sweet 16, somewhere around there.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Luca Garza. He is so good. He's improved a lot from his game from a year ago. I think he got a chance to go last year, and he could have been a first round pick. Decided to stick it out. I don't know how well he's improved his draft stock, but he's clearly made a name for himself. And I think everybody in the sports world knows who Luca Garza is. Do you think there's a dark horse that could come out of, or do you think there's any Cinderella team that could perform so well and make it the Final Four that no one expected?
Well, I I kind of think Illinois is kind of like, I know they're ranked and stuff, and but not a lot of people seem to be talking about them. And they got, I forget his name, but they got a guy who's averaging 20 points, and they actually play Iowa tonight, so that's going to be a good game. But yeah, I think they could maybe have a chance to maybe upset like a top more like a higher ranked team and maybe make it pretty far. So
Yeah, and I thought I'm pretty much going to say anybody from the Big Ten or the ACC. I mean, those are the two premier conferences in college basketball, and I think there's a lot of big names, but I could see one of the smaller teams in that conference going all the way and maybe shocking a lot of people. Not necessarily being a Cinderella, but just being there and kind of like people are saying, "Oh, wow, that team is really good." And last but not least, do you have an early championship prediction? What two teams do you think will square off in the championship game this year in Indy?
uh Gonzaga for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm not really sure who I think what else there's. Yeah, I'm not really sure, but I definitely Gonzaga.
Well, right now it's looking
That'd be
like
like
in
my lock to like that'd be
yeah.
my lock to like make it to win it all.
Well, it looks like right now Gonzaga and Baylor is going to go all the way, but I could see definitely Gonzaga. I'm not sure I'm super sold on Baylor. Villanova's good. Michigan is good. Um, I'm a Louisville fan, and we've been really up and down. We were ranked 25th, but we just got beat on we just got beat by Clemson, so that didn't, of course, look good. We're probably going to drop out of the rankings again. But I think Gonzaga and Baylor right now just to make it safe. But I could see a team like Michigan, Iowa, Villanova, just one of those teams playing Gonzaga. But at the end of the day, I think the Bulldogs are just too good. Before we dive into some more awesome sports topics, don't forget to subscribe, like, leave a comment, and hit the bell for notifications. So when I do release new videos, you'll be updated. Alrighty, last but certainly not least, we save the best for the last, the NFL Championship weekend highlights and Super Bowl preview. Well, Tom Brady does it again as the Buccaneers defeat the Green Bay Packers 31-26. Tom Brady now going to his 10th Super Bowl and trying to take or capture his 7th ring. Michael, do you think Tom Brady is the greatest of all time after going to his 10th Super Bowl and in his first year with the Buccaneers?
Even though I hate to say it, I do think so. And I think anyone who disagreed, I think him making the Super Bowl this year pretty much settles it.
Yeah, and I mean, for a long time, I always said Peyton Manning was the greatest, and Tom Brady was a system quarterback. He was under Belichick. Belichick was the real reason they were successful. But I mean, Brady was able to reach a Super Bowl in his first year without Belichick, and Belichick didn't even make the playoffs in his first year. And I think I saw a stat recently that said wins without Tom Brady for Belichick, 1 in 23 years. Brady's playoff wins without Belichick in 1 year is 3. I mean, he already has more wins without Belichick in less time. I mean, it's just crazy what he was able to do. Let's switch gears now to the Packers. Is Aaron Rodgers still in a Packers uniform, Michael?
I think if they were going to move on from him, they would have done it when they made the coaching switch. But I think Aaron Rodgers is pretty happy as long as they continue to be successful. I think he'll be happy, and I think he likes the new head coach. So,
well, I mean, they need to get better players around him, and certainly he's got a pretty solid team. But you might need another 1 or 2 receivers. You might need another tight end, maybe another corner. I mean, Jair Alexander's good, but Kevin King, I don't know what his problem was. He's not very good. Should have drafted a linebacker. I mean, they have a lot of problems. And then, of course, last year they go out and draft Jordan Love in the first round. That didn't make any sense. I think that kind of made Rodgers mad. And I think Rodgers either wants the Packers to get someone another weapon for him, or to give him a contract extension and play at least 2 more years and then give it up to Jordan Love. But it's crazy what is happening. Also, it's really shocking. The Packers have had a history of having quarterbacks that were very good. Bart Starr, Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre have been playing with the Packers for a combined 33 years and only 2 Super Bowls. That's really crazy because you would think they'd have more. Hey, Michael, why do you think the Packers have been so successful but only have had 2 Super Bowls within the last 33 years?
I think coaching, especially when they were under, I forget it, Mike McCarthy, and I also just think that they have had solid teams, but I think coaching is the main thing. And also, there were some years where, I think that the team itself wasn't really good, or they were good, but they just had holes in them. And so I think that's the main reason.
Well, I mean, Mike McCarthy was not a bad coach. He managed to win a Super Bowl, and Aaron Rodgers was not a household name when he won the Super Bowl. I think it was after he captured his first ring, then he became a household name. So I don't know if it was for Mike McCarthy, but I just think Aaron Rodgers hasn't been able to deliver in some games that he was supposed to. And yes, of course, the Packers don't have the team sometimes, but I mean, Rodgers, he should have probably ran it in for a touchdown. They should have went for it on 4th down. That was probably Matt LaFleur's problem. But Rodgers he should have made a few plays in that championship game. And I think if he would have made some of those, they would have won the game. He did throw an interception. I don't think he looked as sharp enough. And I think sometimes some of the blame has to go with Aaron Rodgers. But that's neither here nor there. All right. Recently I saw or heard Scotty Miller run the Dan Patrick show and said he's faster than Tyreek Hill. Michael, do you think Scotty Smoke Miller is faster than Tyreek the Cheetah Hill.
I don't think anyone's going to be faster until I see proof.
Yeah, I mean Tyreek Hill is so fast, and I don't think Scotty Miller was trying to provoke the bear here. I just think they said, you know what, I'm faster. I believe it. Scotty Miller is fast, but I just don't think he's faster than Tyreek Hill because Tyreek Hill's nickname is literally the Cheetah. But we'll see what happens. It's gonna be a good game in my opinion. What do the Packers do next now that they lost another NFC Championship game? What should they do in the offseason?
I think they definitely need secondary help, especially at corner outside of Jair Alexander. Uh, I think, like I said, they could use another receiver, and depending on what they do with Rodgers, if I'm the Packers, I would at least consider the future because you don't know how much longer he is going to play. But
Well, do you think Jordan Love is the future of the Packers?
I'm not sure until I haven't seen enough of him. I don't think he's dressed a game yet. So
Yeah, I mean that's
maybe
great.
he might be, but I just haven't seen proof of it.
Well, I mean, yeah, they drafted him in the first round. They traded up to get him, but yet they haven't played him, and they haven't even dressed him. And I think that's just strange. Just maybe Tim Boyle is a good backup quarterback, but it just it doesn't make any sense to me. So is there a chance the Buccaneers can knock down the Chiefs?
I definitely think so, especially you have Tom Brady, but I think they are going to have to play really well in order to do it.
Well, I mean, yeah, you got a point there. I think the Chiefs don't really have a flaw. However, they have lost both of their offensive linemen, Eric Fisher, and there was another guy too. I can't remember the guy's name, but those are big. Those are big time losses, and I think the Buccaneers are going to be able to capitalize that. But other than that, that's the only flaw. And I think the difference between the Packers and Chiefs is the Packers have a lot of flaws in that team outside of Aaron Rodgers. And you look at the Chiefs, you can't really think of a flaw. They have a good defense. They have a good offense. I mean, they have Mahomes, they have Kelsey, they have Tyreek Hill. Then on the defensive side, you got Frank Clark, Chris Jones, Tyrann Mathieu. The linebacking core is a little shaky, but it's still very solid. And it's probably better than half the league. So we'll see what happens, but it's going to be hard for the Buccaneers to beat them, even though I do think they have a big chance. And it was reported that the Buccaneers are the NFC team, so they got to choose either if they could wear the home or away, and they have decided to choose the away jerseys. By the way, Tom Brady's 4-1 when wearing his away jerseys, and the last 10 of the last 13 teams to win the Super Bowl has won their away jerseys. So that's another interesting stat. And last but not least, in the NFC Championship game side of things, um, do the Buccaneers, should say, let me rephrase that question. Was Bruce Arian the reason why the Buccaneers won, or was it just mostly because of Tom Brady?
I think it was a combination of both. I think the defense also helped getting all those turnovers. So I think it was more just a team effort, and I don't think the Packers really played up to their what they're capable of. So I just think it was a combination of a lot of things.
Well, yeah. If you saw the if you followed the Buccaneers the last few years, they were very close, and I think the only thing they were missing was a quarterback. And of course, Jameis Winston threw 30 touchdowns, but he threw 30 interceptions. And I think Bruce Arians saw that, you know what, we need a quarterback, and if Tom Brady's on the market, we're going to try to go for him. We're just going to put all our chips on the table, and we're going to go all in. I think that was a great move by Bruce Arians. I never thought of him being that good of a coach, but I think he's become a better coach. And he even said on a lot of interviews, he just lets Tom Brady coach. Sometimes he says he just sits back and, he lets the 6-time Super Bowl champion do it. And I think that's an excellent game plan. I think he was also trying to prove somehow that he was better than Belichick, even though that's not true. But I think he was just trying to prove a point there. But yeah, I think that defense is good. And a lot of people say, it was a team effort, but I think it was more of a defensive effort just because that Buccaneers defense was able to get 2 turnovers on the Packers. They were able to stop them again. Brady threw 3 interceptions, so he didn't play his best, but that defense was able to deliver. What do you think of that Buccaneers defense, Michael?
I think it's a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I was still had questions about their pass rush and their secondary, but they've been playing pretty good, and yeah, they've been
Yeah,
playing
I
a lot
mean,
better than I expected them.
I mean, if you look at the defense, I mean, their secondary is probably the weak point, but they looked really good against the Packers. I mean, that defensive line, of course, will start with Jason Pierre-Paul's an outside linebacker. You get Devin White, the linebacker, Ndamukong Suh, Vita Vea. I mean, they just got so many good players. And of course, Ndamukong Suh finally gets revenge on Aaron Rodgers. He finally gets to go to a Super Bowl. But yeah, that defense has not many flaws, and the great play calling by the defensive coordinator, Todd Bowles. Now we go over to the AFC Championship game, and the Chiefs, well, they win again. They're slowly becoming the new New England Patriots. They get a 38-24 win over the Bills, led by Patrick Mahomes. What takeaways did you take from that game in the Chiefs versus Bills, Mike?
I just think that the Bills didn't necessarily look like they were ready. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the Chiefs and Bills also played earlier in the season. I think it was on a Tuesday, and the
Yeah.
same thing happened. So I don't know if it's just like the Chiefs bring out the worst in the Bills or what, but I didn't think the Bills played very good.
Well, and I think the Bills are still 1 or 2 years away. They're clearly not the Chiefs, and I think the Chiefs are just that much better than just the whole NFL, in my opinion, if they're able to beat the Buccaneers in the Super Bowl. But yeah, I think the Bills are still a year away. Josh Allen still has to work on some things. That defense needs to get better. We'll see what happens, but yeah, the Chiefs are just good. That was what game I took away. Um, what do you think the Bills need to go into the offseason, or what do you think the Bills need to work on going into the offseason, Michael?
I think pretty much defense.
Yeah.
I think they could use it just about everywhere on the defense.
Well, if you remember last year during the offseason, they went out and acquired Stephon Diggs. And I think that was an excellent move because Stephon Diggs, I think, played this year like an elite receiver, which I think he is. I'm not sure he's top five, but he's an elite receiver. And that just changed Josh Allen's game tremendously. And of course, Brian Daboll deserves some credit, their offensive coordinator. But again, what Josh Allen was able to do in the offseason when they acquired Stephon Diggs, I think if you acquire a top tight end for Josh Allen, that team could be scary. So I still think the Bills are a year away, but yeah, that's I think what the Bills need to do in the offseason. Need to acquire more talent for Josh Allen, get a better defense, and just learn from experience. What did you think about what Stephon Diggs did after the game of just waiting and looking at the Chiefs celebrating? What did you think about that, Michael?
I didn't really think too much of it. I think every player does that where, after like they lose, especially in the playoffs, they kind of do that just to like, I guess, cope with losing and use that as kind of motivation. So I think that's what I think of it. I think he's just going to use it to get better.
Yeah, I mean, he was just staring there for a long time. That was kind of weird, but we'll see what happens. Stephon Diggs, very good receiver, and the Bills, they'll probably be there next year, either against the Chiefs or the Ravens. Um, Now we get to Super Bowl week. Who is the X factor for both the Chiefs and the Buccaneers?
I think for the Chiefs, I can go with a lot of players. I think Patrick Mahomes, obviously. I could go Tyreek Hill, but I actually think that it's going to be Clyde Edwards-Helaire because I think if they can get the running game going, I think they'll have a hard time stopping Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce.
And what about who's the X factor for the Buccaneers?
Uh, for the Bucks, I would say it's probably Tom Brady or Gronk, just because they're both ridiculously good in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean that's true. I mean Gronk didn't really play great last week, but he was able to get that big reception that ended up leading into a field goal that ended up winning the game for the Buccaneers. So yeah, you're certainly right. Rob Gronkowski. We'll see what happens. He hasn't had much of a good season this year, but you never know. The guy is one of the best tight ends in pro football history, and when you need him, he'll be there. I think the X factor for both teams, for the Chiefs, a lot of people would say Patrick Mahomes or Tyreek Hill, but I'm going to say Travis Kelce because, and here's an interesting point that I got out from Dan Orlowski, who is who is a former quarterback and currently an analyst for ESPN. He said that that teams need to be able to double team Tyreek Hill, and then when they get to the red zone, double team Travis Kelce. And it seems like no team ever really does that, so they both dominate. And I feel like Travis Kelce, and he even said the best player outside of quarterback in the NFL is Travis Kelce, which is shocking because a lot of people say Aaron Donald is. But what Travis Kelce is able to do, he's able to give Mahomes a big time weapon, especially in the red zone. And I feel like when Travis Kelce is having a great game, the Chiefs are going to win no matter what happens. So if they can get Travis Kelce involved, I could see him being Super Bowl MVP as well. I know that's kind of a no tight end has ever won it, but he's not really a tight end. He's a wide receiver. I mean, he's better than most of the receivers in all of football. So I'm going to say Travis Kelce is the X factor for the Chiefs. And for the Buccaneers, you could say Tom Brady. You could see a lot of players, but I'm going to say Scotty Smoke Miller. He was big in the game in the NFC Championship game versus the Packers. And I think if you can get him involved early, and of course, Antonio Brown's going to be playing, but if you can get Scotty Miller involved, that Buccaneers team is going to be hard to stop. So again, my X factor for the Buccaneers is Scotty Miller, while the Chiefs is Travis Kelce. How big of loss is is Eric Fisher for the Chiefs? He's the best, one of their best tackles. He's out now. How big of loss is that for Kansas City, Michael?
I think it's a pretty big loss because obviously he's their best tackle, and he's probably one of the best tackles in the league. And Mahomes has already been hurt in the playoffs, so I think that's a huge loss for them.
Well, yeah, I mean the Buccaneers' defensive line is scary too. I mean, they got so many pass rushers, and when you don't have a guy like Eric Fisher to help protect the best player in football, that's not good, and that's definitely not what the Chiefs want. All right, so Super Bowl prediction: who wins, and what's the final score, Michael?
I think it's going to be a close game. I think it could go either way, but I think it's probably going to be 31-28 Chiefs.
Well, that's a pretty good score, but I think it's going to be super high scoring, and I think it's going to be the highest scoring game ever with the two combined teams, which I think the highest scoring was Super Bowl 52 with the Patriots and the Eagles. But I'm going to say the Chiefs win 42-35. And of course, what we saw earlier in the year is the Chiefs dominated the Buccaneers in the first half. The Buccaneers came back, but it was still not, they were still short. And what's crazy about that game is Tony Romo actually predicted the Chiefs and Buccaneers would beat each other in the Super Bowl. And here we are. They're playing in it. And Tony Romo was even calling the game. So I'm very glad Jim Nantz and Tony Romo's calling the game. You, Michael, you say you like Tony Romo a lot. Are you glad that he's doing the game?
Yeah. I mean, Tony Romo knows everything.
More than Joe Buck, right?
Yeah.
All
absolutely.
Right. So I'm excited for that game. I think it's be the highest scoring game ever. I feel like I could see maybe one or two punts combined. And I say Travis Kelce is the MVP. Who do you have for Super Bowl MVP, Michael?
I think it's probably going to end up being Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
But I could also see it being Tyreek Hill or Travis Kelce.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be certainly interesting. It seems like pretty much the Buccaneers are gonna pick their poison. Do they want to shut down Travis Kelce or do they want to shut down Tyreek Hill? Even though we can basically take what Dan Orlovsky from ESPN said of you double team Tyreek Hill and double team when you go to the red zone, you double team Travis Kelce. I always thought that was a great idea. And of course, Jim Nantz, Tony Romo calling the game. Even though I do like Chris Collinsworth and Al Michaels and Joe Buck and Troy Aikman are certainly fine. I'm not a huge fan of the ESPN crew, but I'm glad that Jim Nantz and Tony Romo are calling the game. I think they're the best when they call football games. But Michael, you have the Chiefs winning, right? 31-28, was that right? And then I have the Chiefs winning 42-35. So it's going to be a good game. We'll see what happens, but yeah, thanks for joining us, Michael.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks for listening to the Sports Town podcast, or the STP pod for short. You can find us on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and much more. We release new episodes every Wednesday and Friday. Also, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Sports Town Podcast. If you want to check out more videos of the Sports Town Podcast, click on the left. If you want to subscribe to the channel, click on the right.